So during World War II, there was a group of ordinary men who became extraordinary through what they endured together. They were called Easy Company. They were part of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. I mean, these men, they jumped in behind enemy lines on D-Day. They fought through the freezing winters of Bastogne, and they liberated different concentration camps before the war was over. But wait, what made this remarkable? What made these men remarkable, it wasn't the courage, just the courage that they had while they were in battle, but it was their bond. It was what brought them together. You see, these men, they weren't fighting for medals. They weren't fighting for fame. These men, they were fighting for each other. You see, and that's the kind of brotherhood, that loyalty, that tested loyalty, that sacrifice, that is something that this world today is starving for. That is, the world today is starving for those things. And we live in a time where friendship, it can easily mean people think you're friends just by clicking a like or a follow or sending a little heart emoji. Or we live in a time and we live in a world where it's easy to connect, but it's hard to commit. You see, when real relationships, that's the kind of thing that, man, you're going to walk through fire. You're going to stand with that person through the storm. You're going to hold the line when life gets tough. Those kind of relationships, they're rare. But in the same way that the Easy Company, they learn to depend on one another, you see, God designs us to live life in spiritual community. He's designed every single one of us to be a band of brothers, to be a band of sisters who carry each other's burdens, who shows up when life gets hard, who's not going to run when life gets messy. And tonight, that's what I want to talk about. Tonight, I want to talk about what it really means to have real relationships. Not just the surface level relationships. I'm talking about the friendships that they're built on trust. The friendships that are built on a shared mission. And none of them, because none of us are called to walk through life alone, or even to walk through this faith alone. And so the title of tonight's message is Real Faith Grows Through Real Relationships. Real faith grows through real relationships. Now tonight we're going to wrap up Colossians, the book of Colossians, the study we've been doing. As we get into chapter 4, we're going to blow through the whole thing tonight. But as we take a look at this, Paul, he's been preaching his heart out. We've been going through this whole series with each other, and you've been seeing all of the lessons that Paul's been teaching us, talking to us, encouraging us, all of those different things. He's been preaching his heart out, but then what happens when he gets to the end, just when we think he's done, all of a sudden there's this long list of names. There's this long list of names of people that laughed with him, people that cried with him, people that suffered with him, people that prayed with him. And most of us, if we're just skipping through, we'd probably just skip through all of those names and not even really pay attention to them. But tonight, if we were to just pause for a moment and pay attention to these names and what Paul is talking about with them, you and I, we're going to see that they're not just filler verses, but to Paul, this is family. This is his family. You see, these are the people that behind the scenes, these are the people that they carried the message. They opened their homes. They prayed the prayers that kept the church moving forward. And church, here's the truth. You don't fulfill God's purpose alone. You do it surrendered by people who love Jesus and believe in you. That's how things are accomplished. Now, before Paul talks about these names, before Paul talks about these people, he talks about prayer. You see, it's like Paul is saying, before you can focus on the people beside you, you need to focus on the one that's above us, right? And so he's drawing their attention to that. And in Colossians chapter 4, verse 2, Paul says to devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and being thankful. You see, what happens, church, is that prayer keeps your relationships healthy. Why? Because prayer keeps your heart healthy. That's what prayer does. You see, and a thankful heart will always make room for people, right? It's always going to make space for people because prayer keeps your heart soft. Prayer keeps your heart soft towards God, and it keeps your heart soft towards people. And can I just tell you, if you stop praying, you start hardening, right? If you stop praying, you start hardening to the different things of God, to different people in your lives, all of those different things. So don't stop praying. And then Paul continues on in verses 5 and 6. He says to be wise in the way that you act towards outsiders. Think about this. Be wise in the way that you act towards outsiders. Let your conversation be full of grace. Listen, we can sum this statement up that Paul is making to us in one very simple thing. He's saying, don't let your words burn bridges when they can build them. He's saying, be very careful with the different things that you're saying. And so then he's reminding them to pray, to watch, to speak with grace. And then Paul begins to zoom in on the people. And that's where tonight we're going to learn 3 powerful truths about real relationships. Look at your neighbor and say, let's be real. And how many people are ready to dive into it? If you're ready, say, I'm ready. All right, here we go. Truth number 1 is this. If you're taking notes, and I hope you are. Truth number 1 is this. Real relationships encourage more than they exhaust. Real relationships encourage more than they exhaust. Colossians 4, verses 7 through 8, Paul says, Tychicus will tell you, these are wonderful names of Paul's friends. I'm just going to tell you that tonight. Tychicus will tell you all the news about me. He is a dear brother, a faithful minister, and a fellow servant in the Lord. And I'm sending him to you that he may encourage your hearts. Now let's just pause for a moment and remember what's happening here. You see, Paul isn't writing this from some vacation villa sitting beside his pool with his feet soaking in the pool and catching some sun or whatever. That's not where Paul's writing this. Paul's in prison when he's writing this. He's in prison. He's enchained. He doesn't have Wi-Fi. He doesn't have DoorDash. He doesn't have all of these things that's coming to him. But instead of him saying, man, all of these different things are happening. I'm in chains. I'm in bonds. All of these things. He's saying, he's not saying send somebody to comfort me. He's saying I'm sending somebody to encourage you, right? I'm sending somebody your way to encourage you. So basically what he's saying I might be in chains, but my joy is not. Right? You see, that's a challenge, right? Isn't it? Because some of us, if we get a little discouraged or a little bit hurt, sometimes our joy goes out the window, right? But you see, that thing right there, that's like a good thing alone, a challenge for us alone, that even when we're going through the midst of heartaches, even when we're going through the midst of trials and challenges, don't let your joy be stolen. You can still have the joy of the Lord, right? And so that's powerful because this is what I think of. Encouragement doesn't stop just because life gets heavy, okay? You don't stop your encouragement just because life gets heavy around you. You see, Paul sends Tychicus. Paul, this guy, he's not famous. He's not flashy. Paul says, he calls him a dear brother. He calls him faithful. You see, this man, he's not flashy. He's just simply faithful. You see, a few years ago, a missionary couple, they came home after 40 years of being overseas, and when they were they realized they were on the same ship as a famous politician. And they realized when the politician stepped off, there were cameras, there were banners, there were crowds of people. They're taking pictures welcoming this great politician home, but when the missionaries stepped off, there was no one. And the husband, he sighed and he said, looked at his wife and he said, there's nobody here that's for us. And his wife smiled and said, honey, we're not home yet. You see, that's encouragement. Sometimes you just need somebody to remind you, don't quit. You're not home yet. Be somebody who refills others, not drains them. Okay? Be somebody who refills another person, not just sucks the life out of them. You see, encouragement is free. It's something you can give for free, but encouragement is rare. Let's be people that offer that free gift of encouragement. You see, who is your Tychicus? Who needs you to be that one this week? See, maybe there's somebody in your life this week, right now, that needs encouragement. They don't need your advice. They don't need your correction. They simply just need you to let them know, I'm proud of you, and I'm thinking of you. You see, are your words the kind of words that drain people, or are they the kind that revive people? See, several months ago this year, I was taken to the hospital and I spent the time in the hospital for a few days trying to figure out something that was just going on in my body. And apparently it turns out I'm a medical mystery, couldn't figure anything out, but while I was in the hospital, I had two amazing friends, JP and Joey. They showed up at the hospital. They made me laugh. They showed me that they cared. They spent time praying with me. Both of them are very busy individuals. Both of them have so many different things that's going on in their lives. But both of them took time to hang out with me and to pray with me and to let me know that they cared. And that meant so much to me. So church, can I ask you tonight, who are you encouraging right now? Who is getting your best words? You see, sometimes the most spiritual thing that you could do for somebody is to send them a text or to make that call or to show up with a coffee. We live in a culture that's heavy on criticism and light on encouragement. We need to flip that script. But Paul shows us that real relationships, they don't feed on negativity, they fuel encouragement. Okay, here we go. Truth number two. Truth number two is this: real relationships redeem what the world writes off. Real relationships redeem what the world writes off. And verse 9, Paul continues on. He says, he is coming with Onesimus, our faithful and dear brother, who is one of you. Now, you can read that and you could easily gloss over that, but if you know some background, it changes that whole thing. So let me give you a quick little history of who this is, of who Onesimus is. You see, Onesimus, he was a slave. Onesimus, he was a slave who ran away, and he wronged his master, Philemon. He ran away, and legally in that day, in that time, a runaway slave was punishable by death. See, that's what should have happened in Onesimus' life. But instead of that, Paul steps in. Right? Paul steps in and he brings Onesimus to Christ. But then what Paul does is he doesn't just bring him to Christ. Then Paul turns around and sends him back. But he doesn't send Onesimus back as a slave. He's sending Onesimus back as a brother. Church, that is redemption. Paul isn't canceling him. Paul is restoring him. And then Paul does something that's just radical. He puts Onesimus' name in the letter, a public record. He's saying, look at what this did, and look at what has happened in his life, and we now see it and know about it and can talk about it forever. You see, the world, it tells us to only hang out with people that look like you or act like you. But Jesus says to love your neighbor. Jesus says to forgive your enemy. Jesus says to include the outcast. You see, every time you love someone that the world avoids, you're living out the gospel in real time. That's what's happening. So here's a question for you. If your circle only includes people who look like you, who think like you, and who act like you, is it really a Christian circle, or is it just a comfortable circle? Think about that. You see, maybe there's a name that you've avoided, or maybe there's a number that you've deleted, or maybe there's a grudge that you've held on to. Real relationships, they don't define, people by their past. Real relationships see people for their potential. You see, some of us, we've got relationships that maybe they're strained, or maybe they're frozen, or maybe they've been fractured. But you see, grace, it gives you the courage to say, I was wrong. Or it gives you the courage to say, I forgive you. You see, Paul, for all intents and purposes, he could have written Onesimus off. He could have written him off as a failure, but instead of writing him off, he writes him into the story. You see, who else has that happened to? How about us? You see, different things that we've done wrong, Jesus doesn't look at you as a failure. In fact, what he does is he writes you back into the story. He doesn't write you off. He gives you a new story. He gives you a new life. He gives you something else that you can hang your hat on and go, this is what Jesus has done in my life. You're not written off. You've got a new story. So who is your Onesimus? Who is that person that God is calling you to forgive or restore? You see, in 1956, there's a missionary named Jim Elliot. Him and 4 of his friends, they set out to be missionaries in Ecuador. And they served these people in Ecuador, and after about 3.5 years of serving them, praying with them, being with them, 3.5 years later, this tribe that they were sent to serve and pray over, the Waduni tribe, they killed them. They killed Jim, and they killed the other 4 missionaries while they were simply just trying to share the gospel. But despite her husband's death, Elizabeth, Jim's wife, you know what she did? She didn't run away from that and say, I want nothing to do with that. These people killed my husband. These people did something terrible. You know what Elizabeth did? She returned to the same tribe a few years later with their daughter, their young daughter. And you know what she did? Because she returned, because she spent time with them, many of the same men that killed her husband and killed the other 4 missionaries asked Jesus to be the Lord of their life. Their life was forever changed. You see, church, that is a true story of forgiveness over fear. Through her grace and love, many of these men came to know Jesus, and their story stands as a powerful testimony that forgiveness, it can transform even the deepest pain into redemption. So, church, is there a relationship in your life that needs redemption, not revenge? You see, let God turn that wound into a testimony. The third truth that I want to share with you tonight is this, is that real relationships keep you focused on the mission. Real relationships keep you focused on the mission. Through the rest of the verses through Colossians chapter 4 through 12 through 17, Paul ends with a whole list of names. And again, this is the part that it could be easily to skip over, but we see a person named Epaphras who was a prayer warrior. We see Luke, who was a doctor. He was the writer. He was the steady one. We see Nympha, who was the host. She opened her home to the church. We see Archippus, who was the servant, who was holding the line. You see, every single one of them, they played a role. Every single one of them had different gifts, but every single one of them shared in the same goal. You see, church, you may not preach like Paul, but you can pray like Epaphras. You may not write scripture, but you can write encouragement. You may not be able to host hundreds, but you can open your home to just one. You see, everyone has a part to play. Not one single person is unnecessary. Every single person plays a part. So are you a consumer of the mission, or are you a contributor to it? Are you just soaking it up, or are you playing your part? Do you show up expecting to be filled, or are you showing up expecting to pour out, right? How many people have ever watched a pit crew in a NASCAR race, right? It's an absolutely amazing thing. Every member, they have a different job, but they're all doing something. You know, like there's about 15 total people that are part of a pit crew. You've got your engineers, you've got your crew chief, you've got the car chief, you've got the jack man, the person that lifts the car up, you got the people that swap out the tires, the people that refuel the car, the people that even clean the windshield. There are so many things that take place in the pit crew, right? But if one person hesitates, even one, the entire team suffers. If one person hesitates, drops the ball, doesn't do what they need to do or supposed to do, the entire team suffers. You see, they're not competing against each other, they complete each other. Okay? They're working together. And church, that's what the church is. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's what Paul's team looked like. You see, we are not meant to do life alone. So let me ask you, who is your spiritual pit crew? Who do you pray with? Who do you serve with? Or who do you encourage in their calling. If you don't have that in your life, let me just encourage you. Join a life group. Join a serve team. There are so many different places to serve at all of our locations. Let that be your pit crew. Whose pit crew are you a part of? Whose race are you helping them finish? Who's praying for you when you're struggling? Who's reminding you of your calling when you want to quit? You see, you need people like that. I need people like that. We need people like that. We need an Epaphras who is praying for you. You need a Luke who's walking with you. But guess what? You need that in your life, but guess what? The other people around you, they needed that in their life as well. And you could be that person. You are part of the story that God is writing through Radiant Church. Real relationships, they anchor you when life shakes you. That's what real relationships do. They remind you what you're fighting for. Because life was never meant to be lived in isolation. It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be strengthened. And it's meant to be sharpened through relationships. And then what happens is Paul, he closes this letter with one final sentence. In verse 18, Paul simply says this: remember my chains. He says, remember my chains. You see, he's not saying that to get sympathy. He's not saying that to go, oh, Paul, we're so sorry, or oh, Paul, life must have been hard. He's not saying it. He's saying that because he says, I don't want you to forget that this faith costs something. But he's also saying this faith costs something, but I couldn't have done it alone. I can't do this alone. I couldn't have done this by myself. You see, maybe tonight, you're here tonight and you feel chained. Maybe you feel chained by anxiety. Or maybe you feel chained by depression, or maybe you feel chained by some kind of situation that you're facing in your life, or maybe you feel chained by loneliness, and you think that I've got to handle this all on my own. Church, I've been there, where you think that you've got to do it all by yourself. I'm the Lone Ranger. I can do this all on my own. That never ended up good for me. I don't know about you or how that goes for you, but for me, it never turned out well. Because you see, that's not the way it's meant to be. You don't need to be telling yourself you need to do this on your own, or you can do this on your own. You see, Paul's reminding us you don't have to. That's not the way God designed it. That's not the way God designed church. That's not the way God designed relationships. Relationships, the church, is designed for you to walk with other people. It's designed for you to be with other people. It's designed for you to strengthen other people. It's designed for you to sharpen other people. It's designed for you to not walk alone. You see, in 2019, in the Notre Dame, their women's basketball team, they made the Final Four. And there was a reporter that asked the star player, what makes your team special? She said, we pick each other up, literally and spiritually. And then she smiled and said, we win together or we lose together, but we never walk alone. You see, that's the picture of church. Because listen, when your story is all over, when we are done and our story is all over, it's not going to be your resume that people remember. It's going to be the relationships that you built and the people that you lifted up. That's how you're going to be remembered. You see, we don't walk alone. Church, we pray together. We forgive one another. We encourage one another. And we serve together. That's what real relationships look like. And that's what the church is supposed to be. Supposed to be people who hold each other up, who pick each other up. So let's be that church. Let's be that church that doesn't just attend together, but let's be that church that runs together. Let's be that church that runs and serves with one another, because real relationships, they don't just make life better, they make faith stronger. You see, that's the power of real relationships. And that's what the body of Christ is meant to be.